Tower, this is Dave.
Hey, Dave, it's Sue from United Tower.
Hey, Sue.
Hey, did you see a flying disc out by C-17?
Don't even start, Sue.
No,
You're seeing flying discs.
well, that's what the pilot and the ramp guys are telling us. The C-17, they saw some flying disc above, and we can't see
Come
above
on,
us.
Sue.
UFOs, UAPs, abductions, probes, apparent government cover-ups, multiple claimed sightings over the decades, a universe with billions of galaxies, 700 quintillion planets. Is it really crazy to think that there's a possibility that something out there could exist beyond our own world? Or are we just being arrogant into thinking that we are the only ones that could possibly exist? Well, in the recent years, society has shifted into believing that perhaps there is something out there, because in the past, over the decades, anyone that claimed they were abducted or claimed to have seen anything were seen as wacky and conspiratorial. It seems in recent times people have become more and more open-minded. So in today's video, we are going to be looking at the world of UFOs, and we're going to try figure out if there's anything out there beyond our world. Now, if you're watching the news lately, you'd know that there's a former military intelligence officer who is now a whistleblower, has told House lawmakers that Congress is being kept in the dark about UAPs or UFOs, alleging at a hearing that executive branch agencies have withheld information about mysterious objects for years. This man's name is David Crouch, who actually served 14 years as an intelligence officer in the Air Force.
This government is operating with secrecy above congressional oversight with regards to UAPs. My testimony is based on information I've been given by individuals with a long-standing track record of legitimacy and service to this country.
He told lawmakers that he was informed of a multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program.
I was informed in the course of my official duties of a multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program.
He led the analysis of unexplained UAPs within the Department of Defense. He also claimed he was denied access to secret government UFO programs. He then also claimed to have known people who have been harmed or injured by the government for trying to release UFO information. Now, another witness at the hearing was a man by the name of David Fravor, who was a former Navy commander who recalled seeing a strange object in the sky while on a training mission in 2004.
When we launched off Nimitz, my wingman was joining up. We were told that the training was going to be suspended and we were going to proceed with real-world tasking. As we proceeded to the west, the air controller was counting down the range to an object that we were going to, and we were unaware of what we were going to see when we arrived. The controller had told us that these objects had been observed for over 2 weeks, coming down from over 80,000 feet, rapidly descending to 20,000 feet, hanging out for hours, and then going straight back up. For those who don't realize, above 80,000 feet is space. We arrived at the location at approximately 20,000 feet, and the controller called merge plot, which means that our radar blip was now in the same resolution cell as the contact. As we looked around, we noticed that we saw some whitewater off our right side. It's important to note that the weather on this day was as close to perfect as you could ask for off the coast of San Diego. Clear skies, light winds, calm seas, no whitecaps from waves. So the whitewater stood out in a large blue ocean. All four of us, because we were in F-18Fs, so we had pilots and Wizzo in the back seat, looked down a saw a white tic-tac object with a longitudinal axis pointing north-south and moving very abruptly over the water like a ping-pong ball. There were no rotors, no rotor wash, or any sign of visible control surfaces like wings. As we started clockwise towards the object, my Wizzo and I decided to go down and take a closer look with the other aircraft staying in high cover to observe both us and the tic-tac. We proceeded around the circle about 90 degrees from the start of our descent, and the object suddenly shifted its longitudinal axis, aligned it with my aircraft, and began to climb.
Another pilot by the name of Ryan Graves, who was retired, has since founded Americans for Safe Aerospace, which is a UAP non-profit, claimed that he saw UAP off the Atlantic coast every day for at least a couple of years.
These sightings are not rare or isolated, they are routine. Military aircrew and commercial pilots, trained observers whose lives depend on accurate identification, are frequently witnessing these phenomena. During a training mission in Warning Area Whiskey 72, 10 miles off the coast of Virginia Beach, two F-18 Super Hornets were split by a UAP. The object, described as a dark gray or a black cube inside of a clear sphere, came within 50 feet of the lead aircraft and was estimated to be 5 to 15 feet in diameter.
Now, these sightings were not rare or isolated, and were being witnessed by military air crews and commercial pilots whose lives depend on accurate identification, Graves claimed. Graves said UAP objects have been detected essentially where all Navy operations are being conducted across the world. Asked if there were any common characteristics to UAPs that have been cited by different pilots, Graves stated that they were primarily made of dark grey or black cubes inside of a clear sphere, where the apex or tips of the cube were touching the inside of the sphere. Now, back in 2019, a man by the name of Bob Lazar went on the Joe Rogan podcast. If you don't know who Bob Lazar is, Bob is a physicist who worked at Los Alamos National Laboratory in New Mexico and also on reverse engineering extraterrestrial technology at a site called S-4 near the Area 51 Groom Lake operating location. He actually first made the claims back in 1989, exposing Area 51 and claiming that he has been working with alien technology. When he went on to the JRE podcast in 2019, he claimed that he worked on a flying saucer that he initially believed was technology built by the Americans until he realized he was completely wrong. He stated that when he first saw a reactor that he knew the technology was not from this world, and he claimed it was the size of a basketball and could make a gravitational field, which is not something that we can do presently in our own technology. He said he tried to touch it, but he got so much pushback from the gravitational field he couldn't actually physically reach it. But is there any really truth to what Bob Lazar is saying? Well, Bob has been really consistent with the claims he's made since 1989 until now. He sparked more conversation with the JRE podcast, which is currently on over 55 million views on the JRE YouTube channel. In light of the recent hearings, it's hard to think that perhaps there is some truth to this. In fact, when the podcast was actually initially released, people used Facebook plan to storm Area 51 to get answers. More than 2 million people actually responded, going with another 1.5 million people interested. In reality, at the time, only 150 people actually showed up. But that being said, let's look at some of what are considered the most credible sightings of UFOs over the years. So one being the lights above the New York-Jersey Turnpike, which occurred in 2001. So on July 14th, 2001, drivers on the New Jersey Turnpike stopped for around 15 minutes just after midnight. They marveled at the sight of a strange orange and yellow lights in a V formation over the Arthur Kill waterway between Staten Island, New York and Carteret, New Jersey. Air traffic controllers actually initially denied that any airplanes, military jets or space flights could have caused the mysterious lights, but a group known as the New York Strange Phenomenon Investigators claimed to receive FAA radar data that corroborated UFO sightings from that night. Another very popular sighting is the USS Nimitz encounter in 2004. On November 14, 2004, the USS Princeton, part of the USS Nimitz carrier strike group, noted an unknown craft on radar 100 miles off the coast of San Diego. For 2 weeks, the crew had been tracking objects that appeared at 80,000 feet and then plummeted to hover right above the Pacific Ocean. When the two FA-18F fighter jets from the aircraft carrier arrived in the area, they first saw what appeared to be churning water with a shadow of an oval shape underneath the surface. Then, in a few moments, a white tic-tac shaped object appeared above the water. It had no visible markings to indicate an engine, wings, or windows, and infrared monitors didn't reveal any exhaust. Black Aces Commander David Fravor and Lieutenant Commander Jim Slate of Strike Fight Squadron 41 attempted to intercept the craft, but it was accelerated away, appearing on radar about 60 miles away. It moved 3 times the speed of sound and more than twice the speed of the fighter jets, which is super fucking impressive, by the way, if that's true. Another famous incident, of course, was the O'Hare International Airport saucer from 2006. Flight 446 was getting ready to fly to North Carolina from Chicago's O'Hare International Airport when a United Airlines employee on the tarmac noticed a dark grey metallic craft hovering above gate C-17. That day, November 7th, 2006, a total of 12 United employees and a few witnesses outside the airport spotted the saucer-shaped craft at around 4:15 p.m. The witnesses say it hovered for about 5 minutes before shooting upwards, where it broke a hole in the clouds, enough that pilots and mechanics could see the blue sky. However, because the UFO was not seen on radar, the FAA simply called it a weather phenomenon and declined to investigate. Another famous sighting was the Stevensville sightings in 2008. So the small town of Stevensville, Texas is 100 miles southwest of Dallas, is mostly known for dairy farms, but on the evening of January 8, 2008, dozens of residents viewed something unique in the sky. Citizens reported seeing white lights above Highway 67, first in a single horizontal arc and then in vertical parallel lines. Local pilot Steve Allen estimated that the strobe lights spanned at about a mile long and half a mile wide. Travelling at about 3,000 miles per hour, no sound was reported. While the US Air Force revealed weeks later that F-16s were flying in Brownwood military option areas, which is just southwest of Stevensville, many townspeople didn't buy the explanation, believing that there was too technologically advanced for current human abilities. Now, that's also another important thing to note as well, that a lot of the time, the idea that when we see these UFOs and UAPs is that they're not alien, it's just that the American government have created more advanced technology that they're just not sharing with us or with anyone else. That's another theory that seems to go around. I can understand where people are coming from with that for sure. Now, another popular sighting was in the East Coast Go Fast video from 2015. When news leaked in 2017 about the Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program, a video emerged that revealed an encounter between an FA-18 Super Hornet and an unidentified aerial phenomena. Seen along the East Coast at a Raytheon Advanced Targeting Forward-Looking Infrared pod, the craft was similar to the spotted one off San Diego back in 2004, which was a fast-moving white oval above 45 feet long, without wings or an exhaust plume. The pilots tracked the object at 25,000 feet above the Atlantic Ocean as it flew away and simultaneously rotated on its axis, and no explanation has ever really emerged from that. Now, of course, the other incident that's worth mentioning, of course, the one that kind of sparked the whole idea of UFOs was the Roswell incident, which is probably the most famous UFO story of all time. This occurred in 1947 when a mysterious object reportedly crashed into the New Mexico desert. While the US government and the US military have denied any knowledge of this incident, some believe that the objects were space alien crafts and that the US government is covering up the truth. It seems like Joe Rogan has had a big effect on the UFO community, because we also had Travis Walton, who appeared in the Joe Rogan Experience back in 2020, I believe, who alleged that he was part of an alien abduction on November 5th, 1975.
One of the other guys in the crew started looking, but nobody said, "Oh my God, what's that?" or anything like that. It was just kind of an idle curiosity at first. But when we burst into the clearing where we could see the source of this glow, it was just, whoa, you know? I mean, it was just mind-blowing instantly.
He went missing actually for 5 days and 6 hours, and after days of searching with scent dogs and helicopters, he reappeared by the side of a road near Heber, Arizona. Now, according to Walton, after he left the truck and approached this object, a beam of light suddenly appeared from the craft and knocked him unconscious. The other 6 men were supposedly frightened and drove away. Walton says he woke up in a hospital-like room being observed by 3 short, bald creatures. He says that he fought with them until a human wearing a helmet led Walton to another room, where he blacked out and 3 other humans put a clear plastic mask over his face. Walton has said that he remembers nothing else until he found himself walking alone a highway 5 days later. Now, obviously, you kind of have to take these stories with a grain of salt. You can understand at the time when he came out with the story that a lot of people would have thought he was crazy, he was making it up. And it's a hard thing to believe happening. But I think, to be fair, in recent years, since we've learned so much about the fact that there is a huge increase in UAPs sightings, and even the Pentagon itself has stated this to be the case, you know, it's not an impossibility. I mean, obviously, the scientific community completely deny what Travis has said, as they do, like with Bob Lazar. And yeah, they could both be talking absolute dog shit, you know. But that being said, I think it's still a very interesting story, and whether or not it's actually true, time will tell. But I think it's an important one to share, because abductions are always the ones that are considered the most unlikely and the most conspiratorial. So I don't know really where I stand on it. Like, there's a part of me that wants to believe what he's saying, but then there's a part of me that's like, I don't know, it seems a bit too good to be true. But if aliens do exist, why wouldn't they abduct people? Why wouldn't they want to examine humans, you know? You know, maybe aliens are watching us from a distance and they're keeping an eye on us, but they're not really interacting with us, because to them we're like ants and they're just watching how to see how things play out, you know. The last thing I want to talk about is the US government. So traditionally speaking, the US have denied any sort of involvement with UFOs for decades. They kept their secrets buried pretty deep. However, in recent years, they have actually released videos of UAPs or UFOs. The Pentagon released 3 Navy videos that have driven speculation about unidentified flying objects for years, saying it meant to clear up any misconceptions about whether or not the unclassified footage was real or complete. Now, they claim the footage is real. The Pentagon has never made any sort of assertion about what exactly is going on in the videos. They don't claim outright that they're aliens, but they do claim that they do not know what they are, and that they basically, the way these saucers move are so advanced and go against their own physics that it's very difficult to kind of believe that perhaps maybe it was something that was built by the Russians or the Chinese. It seems unlikely, in my opinion, that that's the case. Again, not an impossibility, but, you know, the US government aren't actually coming out and saying aliens exist, per se, but they are saying that they have seen things that they themselves cannot explain. And who knows, you know, maybe there's some truth to all of this. Maybe aliens do exist. So what do you guys think? Do you think the possibility of aliens existing is a real one? Do you think the US government is just trying to distract us? Or do you think that because of the vastness of space that there has to be something out there? And I think, in my opinion, I think it's important to keep an open mind. But at the same time, I'm stupid, so, you know, I would easily fall for conspiracy theories. But I like to keep an open mind, and I like to think that, you know, the possibility of something being out there, to me, seems stronger now than it ever did. Whether or not they exist or not, for sure, obviously time will tell. But one thing I will say is I do kind of like the theory that, you know, they're kind of out there watching us. They're not really kind of interacting with us, but they're just keeping an eye on us, you know, because to them, we're like ants, you know, like watching ants. And they probably see how self-destructive we are and how much we are perfectly willing to kill each other on a daily basis. So they're probably keeping an eye in that sense. But they also could be keeping an eye on us because we built nuclear weapons of mass destruction, and we could literally destroy the planet if we just have one really bad disagreement. Perhaps. Who knows? But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Do you think they exist, or do you think it's all a load of bullshit? Anyway, that's it for me now, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for liking, sharing, and subscribing as always. And I will see you in the next video. Peace out.